welcome to Ion Radio. I'm Ken, and I'm going to be bringing you a special episode today. Last week we just had our Battle of Coruscant with a giant end of season finale, tons of ships, 1,200 points. John and I both sincerely hope you enjoyed it. What we're going to do in between seasons is we're going to put in one special Armada episode. Not exactly sure what it's going to be each season, but we're going to try something out kind of like a one-off in between each one of our seasons. So this time, what I decided to do was reach out to Ed HC, who created an Armada Robot, so an AI that you could play against kind of solo. It's a manual, probably about 40-50 pages. Most of it is objectives or how to play the Rebellion in the Rim campaign, but all that is linked down below. So I reached out to Ed and had an opportunity to play with the robot on the channel. So what we did, he built up a fleet, I built up a fleet, and I pitted up my fleet against his robot. He also played a couple different games, and we'll get to that in the after action report. So stick around afterwards, and I'll be talking to Ed both on the robot, how our fleets did, and the game. I did make one change though with this episode. Rather than video the entire thing solo, a lot of it was done with photographs. I'm guessing you guys don't want to see me flipping through pages on the robot getting used to how it's played. So instead, a bunch of photographs were taken. There's at least 2 photographs per activation, more when shots are fired. So I've narrated the whole thing out for you guys. Why don't you check it out and stay tuned. Hopefully you guys enjoy it, and if you did, maybe we'll do more of this. Otherwise, as usual, here we go straight to the fleets and then to the action. Coming in at 396 points is my Kursta Agate fleet. Kursta's on an Assault Frigate Mark IIB with DBY 827 heavy turbo lasers and the Paragon title. I have a second Assault Frigate Mark IIB with Torren Far, flight controllers, boosted comms, and the Gallant Haven title. There's a Nebulan B support refit with Auxiliary Shields team, Link Turbo Laser Towers, and the Salvation title. And rounding out my capital ships is a Hammerhead Torpedo Corvette with external racks. I have Corran Horn in his E-Wing, 2 generic E-Wing squadrons, and 3 X-Wing squadrons. Coming in at 400 points is Moff Jerjerrod and Ed HC's robot fleet. Jerjerrod is on an Imperial 2 Star Destroyer with Emperor Palpatine, local fire control, electronic countermeasures, leading shots, and XI-7 turbo lasers. We have an Arquetan's light cruiser with Captain Nita and turbo laser reroute circuits. A Gladiator 1 with Iden Versio, Ordnance Experts, Assault Concussion Missiles, and the Demolisher title. For support, we have a Gazanti Cruiser Flotilla with CommsNet. Only 3 squadrons, Valen Rudor, Morna Key, and a VT-49 Decimator. So with my fleet coming in with a 4-point bid, I've elected to go first. The robot has given me the following objective choices: Advanced Gunnery, Contested Outpost, and Dangerous Territory. If elected to choose Dangerous Territory, looking at my options here, Advanced Gunnery with that ISD-2 is going to be difficult, and then Contested Outpost, I don't know that I've got the firepower to take the station, so we're going to go with Dangerous Territory. Alright guys, here we go with the setup we have in terms of obstacles. So the robot put out the station, it put out one of the asteroid fields that I'm highlighting here, and the other one, debris field, up over here. Now when we move on to deployment of ships, I didn't film the entire thing, so you're just going to see the after effects. And slight apologies with some of where it's laying out, but I'll get to pictures here in a second. So as you can see, the robot deployed his ISD. He was flanked on the right side with Demolisher, pointing away from the rest of the Rebel fleet and the objectives. Gazanti parked right alongside the ISD to the left, and the Arquetans kind of moving towards the rebel fleet. On my end, everything was pointed pretty much straight to hit his left flank, and my hope is to kind of come in, swing around, and take out the Architans, maybe grab the Gazanti, and if I can mop up with Demolisher, that would be ideally what I do. Our fighters are kind of more or less going to engage each other, probably round 2, so it's going to be an interesting move forward. Hammerhead gets a nav dial, take it as a token, and we're going to move forward and claim this first objective. ISD will also take a nav dial, use it to claim, increase its speed to speed 3, overlapping the debris field and also taking a objective point. I'm going to activate my assault frigate, again with a nav, just moving forward, taking it as a token. Back on the Imperial side, we're getting a squadron command. Now that squadron command is going to get comms netted over to the ISD, and it's going to make a little jank, not overlapping any fighters and just staying within range 3 of the ISD. Keep in mind that the profile for the Gazanti is escort and needs to do its best, according to the robot rules, to stay next to the ISD. Activating my far-off assault frigate, I'm going to move at speed 3 and just try and get myself positioned better. Architans, the robot decides to take a concentrate fire. It'll take it as a token, and using Moff Jerjerrod, he's going to make a extreme maneuver at the end here, overlapping the obstacle and collecting another objective token. Neb B, engineering token, it's going to use the auxiliary shields team, and it's going to go ahead and increase its shields on the left and right zones, migrating one from the rear to the left and adding a shield on the right. Demolisher shows a concentrate fire dial. It will take it as a token and then just move its speed to, kind of positioning itself in a way to take that objective token on the station in turn 2. Moving into squadron phase, I'm going to move my X-Wings forward. The robot will move the 2 decimators forward. Corran Horn is activated. Now he does have Rogue, so he was able to make an attack against the generic VT-49 decimator. And as you can see, he does 3 damage to the decimator. Valen Rudor will move up, positioning himself right next to Corran. And then my 2 extra X-Wings move up as well. And that will conclude turn 1. Turn 2. As we can see from the overview, we've got kind of a scattering of fighters in the middle, and the Imperial forces have moved forward onto a couple of the obstacles, and my 1 assault frigate is ready to start coming in and hitting the Architans. So I start out with activating the Nebulan B, taking a concentrate fire, and my first shot will be my front to the front of the Architans. So I wind up rolling 3 red dice, I get 2 accuracies and a crit. We're going to use the concentrate fire dial, and that winds up granting me a blank. Using LTTs, and of course I'm going to roll another blank. So we prohibit the evade. Architans will redirect both to the starboard side. My second attack with the Nebulan B, we're going to go ahead and flak squadrons out the port side, firing off at the generic VT-49, and I roll an accuracy. within Tauren range, and I get another accuracy. Firing up against Valen Rudor, I do hit him with a single hit, and there is a scatter. Nebulan B moves forward, speed 2, does overlap one of my E-Wings. ISD will activate. ISD gets a nav dial. It will use it as the dial and makes a long-range shot from its port side to the port side of the Nebulan B. It will roll 2 red dice for 1 hit on there. It's going to use the concentrate fire token. Winds up changing that 1 blank into a hit. So 2 hits. I'm going to spend the evade on the Nebulan B and redirect the remaining hit to the rear. ISD then repositions itself using the dial and is able to land on the other asteroid, collecting another objective token. So I activate the Agate assault frigate next. I have a navigate dial. I'm going to take it as a token and fire my front to the side of the Arcatans. 2 red dice, and I put together an accuracy and a blank, so no damage. Firing from my port side, again we are at long range, and it is obstructed, so I only get 2 red dice. Initial roll, we have an accuracy and a hit, and then with Paragon I get to roll an extra die and get another hit. Accuracy, the green redirect, and the Arcatans will evade 1 hit, taking 1 on the port side. And I move into a slightly better position, hoping maybe I can get a double arc on the next turn. Flip side here, we're back at the Arcatans, who the robot decides to take a concentrate fire dial. Now the Arcatans firing back at the Agate assault frigate, port to port. We are at medium range. Initial rolls 3 red dice, we get 2 blanks and a hit. We're going to concentrate fire in a red die, and we're also going to spend the token out according to the robot rules. Wind up getting an accuracy and a double. We're going to expend an evade with TRCs, and now we have one of the blanks becoming another double. 5 total hits, and the robot accuracies my brace. So now I go ahead and evade the double, forcing a reroll. It becomes a blank. And then I redirect to the front shield, and then salvo back. Salvo winds up creating 2 crits, and the robot will redirect that to the rear. Second shot from the Arcatans is the front to the front of the Nebulan B. 1 red. It's a crit. Goes through. Now again, looking at the robot's maneuvering, it wants to get that objective token, and it's able to maneuver in such a way to pick it up. So we now have just yet another 4th objective token for the robot. Back to me, Hammerhead. We start out with a engineering dial, and I'm going to use that to repair some of the damage taken from the debris field when I landed on it. So now I'm going to fire at medium range at the Arcatans, my front to the port side. This is the one I've been hammering a couple times. It's obstructed, so I only get 1 blue die. Comes up as an accuracy, but then using Tauren Far, I get a hit. The robot redirects it to the front. It will discard that redirect token. And I move out, attempting to get a double arc, just not going to happen. So just positioning myself for a shot in case I need to activate that first next turn. Jumping back to the robot, the Gazanti reveals a squadron dial. It will activate squadrons. It starts with the generic decimator firing at Core and Horn. So the VT-49 will fire, doing 1 damage to Core and Horn. Surprise is only 1, actually. And Valen Rudor activates next, fires, gets 2 hits. That will get braced down to 1 damage. So Corrin is now down to 2 health. Time for the Gazanti to move. Just moves forward at speed 2, again trying to stay within range 3 of the Imperial Star Destroyer. My other assault frigate activates with a nav dial, and I use it to go ahead and start working on some of my opposing fighters here. So here's what winds up happening during this activation. So I have 1 X-Wing squadron that moves forward, rolls a double on its bomb attempt, and that is evaded by the Architans. Second X-Wing moves forward and bombs, rolling a crit. This does generate a thrust control malfunction critical, which will be useful down the road. And the final X-Wing comes in, gets a single hit, and the robot redirects that to the rear. For the actual shot, Assault Frigate will fire front to front. It is an obstructed shot. Roll 1 red die. We are at long range, so the Architans is able to successfully evade it. And then I move forward and I wind up overlapping another E-Wing. Bringing it to the rear is what the robot decides to do. I avoid the obstacle and position myself where I've got a lot of my ships here in pretty tight formation. Gladiator gets a navigate dial. We'll wind up using it and lands on the station collecting the final objective point. So now it's 5 victory tokens to 1. Going into the squadron phase for turn 2. Cornhorn starts out, fires at the VT-49 Decimator, winds up getting 2 hits, bringing the VT-49 down to 3 total hull left. It does get a counter and rolls all blanks. Second activation is a snipe from the E-Wing. Initial roll is 2 damage, so then we're going to Tauren, and that becomes 3. That does knock out that VT-49 before it can attack. Mornaki is the activation left, and she fires at Corrin. 2 damage, and that's braced down to 1. And then my final E-Wing moves into snipe position, ending turn 2. Turn 3. As we can see from the overhead, I have most of my forces right there in front of the ISD with Demo coming up behind. So my first activation is going to be the Nebulan B because I think that's the one that's in the most trouble. My first shot's going to be at the Architans, front to front. Roll up the 3 reds. We get a double, a critical, and an accuracy. Now because this is the Salvation title, that winds up giving me 4 total damage, and there's nothing that Architans can do which will destroy it. For the second shot, fire out the side, flacking Valen Rudor, 1 blue die. It is a crit, which doesn't do me any good, so we Tauren far that, and it stays a crit. Then run the LTTs in, adding 2 black dice, which are both blanks. And then let's use that concentrate fire dial now, and we have a single hit, which winds up being scattered by Valen. So kind of a complete waste of dice there. And I move out of the way, avoiding the asteroids, trying to stay out of long range of the ISD. Speaking of the ISD, that is the first activation the robot decides to do. Has a nav dial, takes it as a token. Its first shot is going to be from the front to the port side of the assault frigate. This is a long-range shot. 4 red dice. Robot rolls the dice, get 2 doubles, a crit, and a blank. Go ahead and evade the double. Then I'll use the redirect to move 1 damage to the rear because the XI-7s, and take 2 to the port side. Now I was hoping to have gotten out of long range from the Star Destroyer, just in. So the Star Destroyer fires a long-range shot, port side, to the port side of the Nebulan B. 2 reds, gets a crit and a blank. So leveraging the evade token, we knock that down to 0. ISD moves, overlaps one of the E-Wings, and I put it off to the side, hoping to do some bombing runs on it later. My assault frigate, I had pre-planned a concentrate fire. Can't really use it because there's nothing in range. So I take it as a token, continue my speed 3 move, and start to circle around the opposing forces. Gazanti goes next, revealing a squadron dial. It will use that, activating both of its squadrons. First squadron that activates is Valen Rudor, fires off at Corran Horn. Rolls 3 dice, gets a hit, and there goes Car and Horn. Mornaki decides to go after an E-Wing, rolls 3 black dice, gets 3 hits, and with Gallant Haven, that is reduced down to 2. Now, one of the neat things about the Cazares is they do have a little bit of firepower, so it does roll 1 blue die into the port side of the Nebulan B frigate. It does get a hit, and I opt to just go ahead and take it. Gazanthi then moves right up alongside the ISD. So continuing my carrier version of the assault frigate, we show a squadron dial and start activating a whole bunch of squadrons. So there's an E-Wing tucked in the back here firing at Mornaki. I do get to snipe. 3 damage with Torn Far, and then Morna braces that down to 2. My other E-Wing fires at Morna, and with flight controllers we're now rolling 5 blue dice. Wind up getting 2 hits with an accuracy, so let's go in to damage Morna. Morna does get to counter back and does 1 damage. And my final activation is an X-Wing firing at Morna, again with flight controllers, firing 5 blue dice, obtaining 3 hits and 2 accuracies. Torn Far the accuracy, come up with a blank, so 3 total hits at Morna. So Morna is now down to 1 health. So my first shot from the assault frigate is going to be to flak out the front, firing out at Valen Rudor. Wind up getting a crit. Try to fix that with Torn Far. Another crit. No damage. Versus Morna, on the other hand, fire away. Get a single hit. Nothing she can do about it. Morna is removed from the table. Second shot, close range, port side of the assault frigate into the front of the Gazanti. Fishing for accuracy here to get rid of that scatter. So 4 dice. Blue is a hit. Red, I get a hit, a crit, and a blank. Using Torn Far in that blue, no change. Gazanti scatters it away. And using the nav token, I'm going to jump up to speed 3. And I will wind up overlapping this asteroid field, unfortunately, pulling damaged controls. So fortunately, I'm not going to be running into any more obstacles, but I need to avoid ships and running into anything now. Gladiator activates next, showing a concentrate fire dial. It's going to go ahead and use it. This is Demolisher, so it's going to start with its speed to move, overlapping a debris field. Then Demo makes a shot at the assault frigate, front to front, rolling 2 red dice, has a hit and a crit, uses the concentrate fire to bring in another die. It's only a blank. So I go ahead and brace that down to 1, take it on the front. Not much more action in the rest of this round. Hammerhead shows a nav dial. Use it to increase my speed and get just in front of the Nebulan B. And I want you to take a look at how close this wound up being. Not a lot of room between the Hammerhead and Nebulan B. I'm really working hard as best I can to make sure that I'm not running into myself. All right, moving on to squadrons. Bumped the assault frigate a little bit, but the 2 X-Wings move into position to go after Valen Rudor. On to turn 4. Turn 4. Here's the board state. ISD sitting there, hovering close to the Gazanti. My assault frigates are pretty close to both the ISD, and Demolisher is starting to come in. I'm a little worried about that. My 2 smaller ships are just hanging out on the side, and I'm going to try and get around and escape now. But here's my first shot. We're going to start with the assault frigate, showing squadrons. I'm going to try and take out Valen Rudor. So E-Wing's going to start. I can snipe. With my 4 dice, I have an accuracy, 2 hits, and a crit. Using Torn Far, change the crit to a hit. prohibit Valen Rudor from using his scatter, so he will brace it down to 2 damage. X-Wing fires all 5 dice. I get 5 hits against Valen Rudor. I need a accuracy here. So Terran Far, go from a crit to another hit. Scattered away, no damage. Final X-Wing activation with the Squadron Command. Wind up rolling 3 hits, a crit and an accuracy. Prevent him from scattering, do 3 damage. There goes Valen Rudor. So I'm considering firing at the ISD, but figure my best bet's to try and take down the Gladiator. I do have a double arc on demo. So first shot, front to front, medium range, 2 red dice. I get 2 criticals. Demo will evade, changing a crit to a hit, and then we'll redirect both of those to the side. Now, oddly enough, my second shot from my port side to the front of Demolisher is at long range. It is obstructed, so I drop a red, and it allows me to get a crit and a double. Demolisher will brace that down to 2. And I wind up moving alongside. I didn't have very many good options here. I could either keep myself in close range, or medium range rather, of the ISD, or I'm putting myself into debris fields. I just want to get away, and at this point I'm hoping I can survive a double shot off of Demolisher. So I was expecting the robot to pick Demolisher. It didn't. Robot decided to take the Agate and had an engineering command. So we decided that the robot would comms-net the engineering token down to demo for later. Then the Agate starts flacking. So first out the port side, firing at 2 X-Wings. First one misses. Second one also a blank. Now flacking out the front, gets to fire at the 1 X-Wing a second time. It gets a hit this time, nothing on the E-Wing. Now when the Agate goes to move, it was really limited in its options. I had to stay within range 3 of the ISD, and everywhere else kind of put him into danger. So I felt the best way for the robot to move here is to move the Agate out of the way. The ISD should be able to go across it and start making a roundabout to attack from the rear side of all of the rest of my ships. Activating the Nebulan B next, show a nav dial. I'm going to use that as the dial, and then I'm going to make a long-range shot from port side to the front of the Gladiator. Wind up rolling 1 crit, and it is taken. Then leveraging that dial, I'm able to keep myself clear of the rest of my ships, putting myself into a position where I should be able to easily get the Nebulan B away. Now here's where the robot decides to activate Demolisher. Reveals a concentrate fire dial, and then starts its shooting. First shot is from the front of the Gladiator into the port side of the assault frigate. Now it is obstructed, so it does have to drop the red die. The other, what does wind up rolling is a red, 2 blacks. Gets an accuracy on the red, and then a hit and the double on the black die. Concentrate fires in another black die, showing another hit. Demolisher will accuracy my brace. So 4 defenses. I evade the double, which is then rolled into a blank, and then redirect the damage to the front. So it's 2 damage onto my front. Demo then moves, keeping his port side facing the port side of the assault frigate, winds up doing another shot here. So Demo comes into play, rolls 4 black dice. We get a hit, a double, and 2 blanks. So using Ordnance Experts, re-rolls both of the blanks, getting the hit crit on both of those dice. So 7 total damage. I go ahead and start by evading one of the doubles, which makes it into a hit, so now we're down to 6 damage. I brace that into 3. Assault concussion missiles are now used, and I have lost 2 shields, taking 3 total damage, 2 internals. All in all, it's a pretty nasty shot from Demolisher into that assault frigate. It's hanging on. Hammerhead is my next activation. Concentrate fire is shown. I'm going to use it as the dial. Fire my front into the port side of the Gladiator. 2 dice here. We are at medium range. Blue shows an accuracy, and I have a crit. So I do decide to turn far the accuracy, and it becomes another accuracy. I just block his evade. Concentrate fire in another red die for a hit, so 2 total damage that the Demolisher has to eat up. Change my speed to 2 and swing over here to avoid running into the Assault Frigate and the Nebulan B. ISD's turn. ISD reveals a nav dial, takes it, and then starts flacking squadrons. So out the front, it has a couple different shots at an E-Wing and an X-Wing. So against the E-Wing first. E-Wing rolls all crits, using leading shots, pulls out a die hoping for a hit, gets an accuracy. Flacking up against the X-Wing, hit crit, X-Wing will take 1 damage. Does have a side shot to the side of the Assault Frigate. This is the one that's been hit pretty hard. It is obstructed, so it's only going to be 1 red die. Rolls up with an accuracy. Now, using the nav dial and Jerjerrod, we get to do some pretty impressive maneuvering here where we make a turn with 2 clicks, 1 click, and 2 to the left-hand side, bringing this ISD around and ready for combat, chasing all my rebel ships. Now my last activation here is Curse to Agate, and showing Confire, we're going to try and do something to the Gladiator. I am just in long range from my side. We're going to fire into the front of Demo. So 3 red dice, get 2 crits and a hit. Confire in another red for another hit, 4 total damage. Demo will evade 1 of the crits. So a crit that it winds up showing is life support failure, so all of its command tokens are now gone. And using my token, I change my speed to 2 and maneuver myself in such a way where I believe I'm just in long range of the ISD. And again, here's my maneuvering. I'm just so close to a lot of my ships there, just enough room between the Assault Frigate and the Neb B. So with squadrons, I'm electing to just move my stuff away and out of the way. So my 1 X-Wing here moves off into the sunset, and my remaining E-Wing, on the other hand, I want to try and take out Demolisher. So close to doing it now, so moving my way over here to its starboard side, and that will end turn 4. Turn 5, I have an Assault Frigate that's hurting, Demolisher's hurting, and I've got 2 of my smaller ships which are just going to do their best to get out of there because that ISD has done a heavy turn coming in to take out my ships. So my first activation is going to be the Assault Frigate that's closest to Demolisher. I do have a double arc on Demo, so I'm hoping to be able to take it out. So let's start with my rear to the port side of Demo. Get to roll 2 red dice. I get a crit and a double. Demo will brace that down to 2 and redirect 1 to the rear. Second shot, 3 reds, 1 blue, my side to the side of the Gladiator. Wind up popping up a double, blue hit, and 2 blanks. But that is enough to destroy it. For those curious, the crit is a ruptured engine. So Demolisher is destroyed. Using the nav dial, I'm just continuing my way, speed 3, getting as far away from the battle as I can. Alright, ISD goes next, revealing a nav dial. Has a medium range shot. ISD is going to make a shot front to rear of the Agate Assault Frigate. We are at medium range. 4 reds, 4 blue dice, and we get in 2 accuracies, a hit, 1 crit. The red dice show up a hit and 3 crits. That's a ton of damage. Any will accuracy my brace and my redirect. So my only real hope here is to go ahead and evade the blue crit, which winds up turning it into an accuracy. And I wind up taking 5 total damage. One of those is a crit, blinded gunners, so while attacking I can no longer spend accuracy icons, but I don't think that's going to matter because I'm not going after the ISD anymore. ISD continues its speed 2 move here, landing on the asteroids, and now it's right behind the assault frigate. Couple quick activations here. Starting with the assault frigate, I have a confire planned. I'm going to take it as a token and run away. I'm not going to fire at the Imperial Star Destroyer. I just don't have enough firepower to punch through its shields and do enough damage to it in 2 turns. Agate gets to activate next, shows an engineering, close enough to commsnet that over to the ISD. No shots at the X-Wing hiding behind the debris field. It's obstructed, so it just moves around the corner, hoping to get a shot next turn. Hammerhead is next, showing nav, and I'm going to leverage that dial as best I can to put myself right behind the other assault frigate. You can see the maneuver tool on the table here. And again, another real close maneuver, staying out of range of the Imperial Star Destroyer. The Agate assault frigate is next, engineering. Use it to fix up a bunch of shields, and then rather than spend tokens to fire at a Palpatine ship, I just move away and stay at long range. Moving on to squadrons, I have one X-Wing sitting here in the sunlight, and it continues to move away, landing somewhere on the planet below. And then the remaining set of my squadrons, I've got 4 squadrons left to activate. I'm not going to go after anything, so I just pull everything out of range, flak range of the ISD. And that will end turn 5 onto turn 6. Turn 6. This is going to be a quick one. I'm pretty much ready to run away. There's not much he can do, but he may get a shot off at me. So unfortunately, because I have things lined up as they are, no matter what I do, the ISD is going to get a shot. So ISD reveals a nav dial. This is the only thing that matters in this turn. We are outside of medium range. I showcased this there just out of medium. We are at long range. So here's the shot. ISD, 4 red dice against Agate, and they come up with an accuracy, 2 hits, and a blank. So my evade is, an accuracy is spent on the evade. Brace that down to 1. Take the minimal amount of damage. The ISD is going to move forward. Nothing else is going to shoot, and that will end the game. All right, everyone, I'm Ken from Ion Radio, and with me is Ed, the creator of the robot AI on the episode we just watched. Ed, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So you had an opportunity to see the battle report that I just completed using your robot. What did you think? I'm curious to get your impressions on how the robot got used.
Okay, well, looking through the episode, it looked okay. It looked pretty good. I mean, there were a couple of odd activations where Demo could have used some navigation at the beginning and ended up getting some concentrate fire instead. But hey, that's life. That's the dice. And but overall, there was nothing outrageously horrible. There was one moment where the Gazanti, two turns in a row, got a squadron command, and I was wondering, that's not great. But it ended up okay because they managed to kill Corin, which was the squadron objective. They were going to be going after the nastiest fighters because they're not bombers, they're anti-fighter squadrons. So that worked out okay. And maybe the only thing is maybe Jerry out the gate should have been accelerating and leading a little bit more, because as a second player, he could have been moving his nose further over into the turning assault frigates to catch them when they'd finished their move. But that was the only thing.
So I was looking at a lot of different things with the robot rules and how it wanted to stay. And sometimes I got some really corny activation suggestions. For example, no squadrons and the Gazanti wants to squadron. So I would just go to the next die roll, pick a navigate, for example. And I think what I was trying to do was stay within the spirit of the robot. So if we wanted to keep something in the front arc, all right, can Jerry really get it to move in such a way where it would properly sit? Speed was one of those things where it became do I want to stay in the long range, like for example with the Star Destroyer, or with the Gazanti it wanted to stay within range 3 of the ISD, because that was the ship it was escorting. So it's trying to do all of that, and there's probably one or two times looking back at the game I could have changed things a little bit.
Sure, it's always easy. I mean, it's easy for me to watch it and go afterwards, oh, that would have been better. I mean, it's hindsight and backseat driving is really easy. But no, I think it went well. I mean, the ships were really circling around one another, and they weren't just sort of flying off into corners and doing stupid stuff. So I mean, the targeting the flagship and keeping it in their preferred arcs, which is what they're supposed to do.
So now that we've actually got to see a whole battle report on the channel, and it wasn't fully filmed. I mean, we showed this in more or less photographs, just the amount of back and forth I had to do to try and get this on a recording. It was a fascinating exercise for me just in the production component of it. You also played with this fleet at home.
Yep.
And you a different objective, that's okay. And then I also played it a second time. So I want to go through, just for everyone curious to see, all right, was this a one-off that Ken actually won? Or, what happens when we've got other people playing the robot? Could you tell me about the experience you had when you piloted the robot with my fleet?
Sure. So I flew the Rebels, again, against the same fleet. So same ships flying. Chose the advanced gunnery. And I thought I'd lost. I played through right till the end to round 6. And there was quite a lot of carnage at round 6. It was a real final show. And I thought I'd lost. And when I tallied up the points, I just squeezed by with a 16-point margin of victory. So it was very close, right up to, it was a nail biter, right up to the end.
In other words, the fleet matchup does seem like the robot, or my fleet rather, would win. And oddly enough, I flew the exact same configuration a second time. I did this off film. And what I wound up finding out, I changed my tactics just a little bit for the same objective, and I went for victory points. That ISD and Jerjerrod came into more effect in my second playthrough, and it almost tabled me, and I wound up losing against the robot. I think it was by 315 points or something like that. So it was a stellar win for the robot.
I was going to say, well, that's sort of one big win, a slight win, and a loss, which is about average for what I've seen the performance. I've played a lot of games against the robot, obviously, and I seem to win 2/3 of them, one by a good margin, one by a squeak, and 1/3 of them I lose.
That seems to, with a very limited set here, exactly what winds up happening in virtually the same game with the same 3 fleets.
Yep. Yeah, that stands up because I must have played over 100 games with the robot now. After I've played a couple of Rebellion in the Rim campaigns, and that's when I really looked at sort of the overall performance, because I was actually recording things and keeping a track of the battles, because you got to do that, and that's where I saw that these seem to be the ratios: big win, slight win, and then loss.
So we actually got an opportunity during the pandemic to play a Rebellion in the Rim campaign together, where you did everything yourself. You had the robot I think you used the robot for my fleets, if I remember
Yep,
correctly.
that's right.
And I wound up being the Grand Admiral, saying where my bases would be. You were the opposing Grand Admiral. Now that was a lot of fun for me. You had the opportunity to play all of it. What was your experience now on that, having a little bit of human interaction?
Oh, it was great. Because when you play Rebellion in the Rim, there isn't a lot of secret information. I mean, the only real secret information is what the objectives are on the bases. And that's about it. That's why I never did anything for the Corellian conflict, because there's too much secret information.
Mhm.
And so Rebellion, not much that secret. You know where the rebels are. You just don't know
Right.
what they're waiting for with their bases. And so, but having someone say, what do I want to do with my fleet?
Mhm.
That was a really big input, because playing solo, if you play Rebellion in the Rim solo, I put guidelines to say, where is the robot going to attack?
Mhm.
You know, you can just decide, or I put some tables in there for someone who really doesn't want to decide and just wants to roll it off. So there is an element of, whatever, the robot's going to live his own life, but it is more pleasant playing with a human being.
Mhm.
And that's, for me, that's kind of the leitmotif of the robot. I mean, I didn't make it to replace people, because you can't replace people,
Right.
and you'll never have as much fun as when you play with somebody else. It'll never be as fun or as exciting as playing with somebody else. So the robot's really when you can't play with anybody else, or when you want to practice, or that's really the spirit with which I made it. So having a Grand Admiral for Rebellion in the Rim campaign was really good, just for the choices of attacks and the upgrades and making the fleets grow. Because again, and that's something, as far as growing the fleets, I didn't put any guidelines for how the fleet should grow, because if not, it just gets too complicated. There's just too much stuff.
Well, it seemed to work out fairly well in terms of the Rebellion in the Rim campaign that we played. You won that one.
Yep.
And we were going to start another one, as I recall, and then that's right around the time that the 1.5 rules drop. So we'll have to get back to another campaign at some point, Ed, just because I had such a blast doing that. And I think we were going to change where your fleets get to be the robot, and then I get to control the game.
Yeah, switch over. And I played another campaign that completely solo, very small one, where I actually alternated, where it was I rolled off to see which would be the robot fleet. So basically played both Grand Admirals, which was fun too. Different way to do it. And that way I never really knew what fleet I was going to be playing. That was that was an interesting way to do it.
You don't want to be playing yourself. What I liked about the robot, and this is a very specific thing that I really enjoyed about it, you're going to try and play the game as well as you can, but sometimes there are choices you have to make. And when you start saying, well, would I do this or would I do that, the robot can almost eliminate that choice to say, do that. And then, okay. And then that's, I think, where the robot really shines, is when it does have 2 or 3 good options, and the roll of the die based on the characteristics of the ship or the objective it's playing, and then the robot decides to make that move. So for me, it was a lot of fun to really do that. And in this case, the game, you developed the Moff Jerjerrod fleet, and I put together the Cursed Agate fleet. So there was some human involvement in it, and then you also selected the profiles for this battle. And at the end of the day, I think it wound up working out really well. And I know you had fun playing against the robot, on your time. And then now that you've seen it in play, I'm sure you kind of enjoyed seeing the robot actually on film, I guess.
Yeah, sure. Well, what's fascinating for me is to actually see somebody else using it. Because I mean, I've played with the robot a lot, because it played a few games with it, but seeing somebody else use it is quite fascinating too. It's very interesting to see. Well, does it work? Does it work as it was intended to, basically?
And then I guess based on, like we've already talked about, with 1 or 2 exceptions on how Jerjerrod could have used, I'm hoping I used the robot as it was intended.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of odd orders that came out, but hey, that's the dice. I mean, it's the especially on the Gazanti, which is vanilla, which has the vanilla command option, which it's going to roll a little bit of everything. So I mean, that's everything includes the squadrons when it wouldn't necessarily need them. But what the hell, it's that's life. Again, Armada is a difficult game, and we make mistakes when we play. So one of the ideas is if a mistake isn't completely idiotic or suicidal, then the player made a mistake. I mean, we all make mistakes when we play. We don't quite have the right order at the right time. We thought we wanted to nav when we actually really needed that that engineering, and that's the way it goes, especially on the high command ships. I mean, it was easy. It was easier maybe on the ISD because we gave it the mover profile.
Yes,
and on
we
mover,
did.
He moves. He either moves or he
Right.
engineers. He's not going to squadron. He's not going to concentrate. So it makes him very much about getting his face into the enemy and then unloading as many dice as possible.
And he really had one or two good opportunities at the end of that game. My two assault frigates were hurting. The one in particular, I think if I would have chosen to go second as opposed to first, and the exact same layout occurred, Demo would have taken out at least one of my assault frigates, and I think that other one would have been in trouble too. So from my experience, again, just the little things that robot did, it was just fun for me to see an imaginary opponent of sorts in this robot to really actually provide a little bit of a challenge. And there were times where I'm thinking this robot's going to get all the objective tokens. It got 5 of them. And honestly, it just came down to I was able to run and outpace the ISD, and that's the only reason I think I won in this game.
Yeah, getting the tokens is good. That means you played the robot properly because that's one of his objectives. I mean, because it's dangerous territory.
Right.
He's going to prioritize getting those tokens, and the way the guidelines on deployment are going to encourage the objectives being grouped together as well. So, and you're going to deploy the fleet in front of the objective so it can go get them as well. So I mean, everything the guidelines encourage the robot to have his tokens within reach and go get them as fast as possible. So it's actually a good example of sort of the objective play that the robot will do.
Yeah, and actually that was one of the things I think part of the reason I wanted to choose that objective. First of all, the other two were probably not good for me. And the flip side to that was also, I was curious, how well is the robot really going to do with these objective tokens? And it really, like I said, it picked all of them up. And the second game that I played off camera, guys, sorry, but I was dead. And I don't even think that game left turn 4. I'm pretty sure I was virtually tabled at the end of turn 3 with just salvation left.
Some of it attack dice, because sometimes when the dice hate you, they hate you, and when they love you, they love you. And if the robot's rolling nothing but doubles and you're rolling nothing but blanks, then it's going to kill you.
So the second game off camera, the red dice that were being rolled were pretty much identical to what I do to John in a normal battle report. I'm going to force the re-roll of a red double, and it just shows up another red double. And I intentionally tried to remove myself from this. I was using a dice tower and everything else just to, so that there was no possible way that I was potentially manipulating the dice. And the red dice just did not like me in that second game. So I have to say, I know how John normally feels with his defenses.
But the red dice love you usually.
They usually do. Off camera, there's a lot of looks I get from John when I re-roll back into doubles, but that's a story for a different time. Was there anything that you wanted to kind of express to everyone that might be interested in playing with your robot, or that has, or just in general? This is your opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, not really. I mean, I don't have any wild philosophy. It's just, have some fun, play the game. I mean, it's especially with, this is a bit topical, but with the last announcement we got out of AMG, I mean, it's up to us, the community and the gamers, to keep this game alive. So let's play it and keep it alive in any way we can. It's a great game, and it deserves to be played.
It really does. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. If I didn't, then I wouldn't have this channel. And again, I really appreciate a couple things. Ed, first, letting me use the robot on the channel. That a big thank you to allow us to film this, and it means a lot to us.
Okay, you snagged it at the end, but well, all I can say is, well, thank you. I mean, it's great. I've really enjoyed the different exchanges we've had. I mean, I really enjoy your channel. I mean,
Thank you very much.
I think I must have been in like the first 20 subscribers, because I remember when you first came in, and you guys consistently, nearly every Friday, put out content. And it's good content. It's well filmed. It's great stuff. I mean, you guys are on the ball. So it's a real pleasure to be able to contribute and sort of in a way give back, because I mean, I can appreciate how much time it takes to do all that. And it's I mean, creating content, creating battle reports, and doing it as well as you guys do. It doesn't happen in 5 minutes. It's a real effort, and I think it's great. I mean, it's thanks to guys like you and John, and stations like Ion Radio that keep the game alive, and that's really, really important, especially now. It couldn't be more important than now.
Well, thank you very much. And I know I appreciate that. I'm speaking for John, but I'm sure he would mimic my statements as well. You are right. It is a little bit of effort on our end. You know, what you guys see in 1 hour, and I think John addressed this in one of his backseat admirals, but that's usually 3 to 4 hours of, you know, film time, editing, and everything else. So there is a lot that we put into it, but hey, we enjoy the game, and you know, we do this, you know, for you guys. This initially was supposed to be, we'll throw something out once a month, but the dice didn't roll that way for us, and here we are almost 2 years later. So Ed, thank you so much for joining me today, and you know, being part of the channel, letting us use your robot. Look forward to probably doing another campaign with you at some point. Maybe we could do Clone Wars for fun.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And then for everyone else that's watching, Ed's robot, you can download it. The links are below in, it's all on Board Game Geek. Great thing to check out. So please do. And until next time, I'm Ken. And I'm Ed. And this has been Ion Radio.